Welcome to Picks and Parlays here on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, also streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm your host, Nick Geber. You can find me on Twitter, at Nick Geber. If you're watching us, you can see right there, that's my name, with an @ sign at the beginning of it. That means you can Twitter me, twatter me, follow me, make me famous, please. Lots to get to today, this Thursday, January the 9th, 2009. And it's the start of Nishi Honganji Day in Japan. I'm not quite sure what that is. It sounds a little like you're going to fall into a board game and spend the rest of your life with Jack Black. But anyway, we've got a lot to get to today. College basketball Thursday. We're going to kick it off with Craig El Guapo Trapp. We're going to talk Memphis, Wichita, Purdue, Michigan, Arizona, Oregon, and we might talk at great length about his most beloved Ohio State. We're going to talk about that ad nauseum for Craig. And then the Duff Man cometh, Joe Duffy. Now, Sean Duffy not available today, so we went with Joe. We're going to talk a little NBA, Cavs and Pistons, Blazers, Timberwolves, and we have to talk about the national championship game, of course, LSU, Clemson, LSU, take your pick. And then we will top it all off with Chip Chicken Dinner Chirimbes, who's on a big winning streak right now. We're going to talk a little college basketball, Minnesota, Michigan State, Washington at Stanford, and a little NBA action for you as well. The Houston Rockets, and I think they're playing the Thunder, but I have to check it out because I can't read my own handwriting, which is always an early sign of insanity, I have to say. Look, we're with you Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. on the left coast. We hope you'll make us a regular part of your week as we bring you the best in free sports betting picks right here on the show. And look, we bring in nothing but the top handicappers in the country. Picks and parlays, we have 35 of them, and we do bring a lot of them on this show for you. If you've got a question, comment, thought, insult, love to see it. Just find us on our social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Fill out the comment section. We'll see it and endeavor to comment and bring you into the show. Just hashtag Parlay Radio or search for Picks and Parlays. That'll all work, I believe. And right now we have a special on the website, by the way, if you'd like to get some of our expert picks. It's an annual pass. That's right, $9.99 will get you all the picks for an entire year from one of our top handicappers, any one of your choosing. And if you want two handicappers, well, you think that would be double that, but it's not. It's $14.99 for two cappers the entire year. Think about that while we go to break, and we'll be right back after this. Thanks for staying with us here on Picks and Parlays. I'm your host, Nick Geber. You can find me on Twitter, at Nick Geber. By the way, lots of people choosing to follow me, and I'm very pithy and wise on my twittering. Not like the guy in charge. You know who I mean. I at least get to the point. All right, look, a lot to get to today. I promised we'd bring in our expert and El Jefe, but he's better known as El Guapo around here, Craig Trapp. Craig, happy Thursday. We've got a lot to get to today. Should we talk a little college basketball?
Yeah, this time of year, man, it's the conference season starting. But we actually have one of these games as a key unusual conference matchup because, of course, Wichita State is finally in the American Conference.
Oh, well, let's talk about it. Why don't we start with that? By the way, Tony Teller's his favorite because this is the Memphis Tigers. Now, we all know that Tony is called El Tigre, or Comandante El Tigre is his guerrilla name. But there are lots of Tigers in college sports. There's the Memphis Tigers, there's the Clemson Tigers, but we have Tony the Tiger right here, Picks and Parlays, but he's not on today. But let's get to it. Memphis Tigers 12-2, 8-5-1 against the spread. After the early loss to Oregon, the Tigers went on a supreme heater, 10-game heater, but that just ended in a 65-62 loss to Georgia. They're 2-0 straight up, 1-0-1 against the spread. Away, 1-0 in conference. DJ Jeffries should return, but Damian Bowe still listed as probable or possible or probably not going to be there. We just don't know. The under in 6 of the last 7 in conference play. Of course, that's going back to last season because I don't think they've only played 1 in conference so far. Wichita State, the Shockers. I love that one, the Shockers. So far, they're 13-1, 8-6 against the spread. Only a loss to West Virginia sullies their otherwise perfect record. They've won the last 7. They're 10-0 straight up, 5-5 against the spread at home, 1-0 in conference. The total has gone over in 7 of the last 8. And Craig, I have a total of 139 and Wichita as 4 points home favorites to do a little shocking of the Memphis Tigers. How do you see this one?
I even see a total of 140 out there, but 139, 140, I don't think it really matters in this one. I think it's going to be a good defensive matchup. I think this Memphis team, a lot of people thought once their superstar and most likely number 1 pick, James Wiseman, decided to just cancel his season and go to the NBA and skip rest of the season for Memphis, that Memphis season was going to be lost. Hasn't been the case, other than, like you said, last time out against Georgia in a close 3-point loss. But, this Georgia team's pretty good. We saw them compete pretty well with Kentucky earlier this week. I don't really give them a whole lot of, problem with that loss. They did have a good win on the road at Tennessee earlier this year. So I think Memphis has got plenty of scoring punch and just athletic ability that I think they can go on the road. Now, Wichita State is one of the better or more difficult places to play in the American Conference, but I think Memphis getting 4 points is enough to get this win against the spread for us. I think they might even win outright, but I would definitely take the points here because I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. I think this is more like a 65, 62, 65, 64 type game. So I would take the under, and I also would take Memphis +4 as my better of the 2 plays.
Oh, that's interesting. So you wouldn't sprinkle a little money line magic on Memphis because, as I look at this, I mean, these teams have very similar records. And, of course, Memphis on that super hot streak that we mentioned did just enter Georgia. But, when a team is that hot, both these teams, great records. I mean, that's a 2-basket point differential here. I think that's maybe a little disrespect to Memphis there. Or is that all home field advantage, home court advantage?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the key here. But, I mean, Wichita is one of the tougher places to play. We've seen a lot bigger teams go to Wichita and lose on that court. So I think you have to take the points. It's just a much safer play. And what I think is going to be a very good matchup, maybe outside of maybe these other 2 games we're going to talk about, probably the third best game on the schedule tonight. A lot of people probably won't know because they don't follow either Memphis or Wichita. But both of these teams, I think, are going to be tournament teams at the end of the year. And both of them, not many teams are going to want to play these 2.
I agree. Should be actually a really good game when you get 2 teams of that record playing with their records playing. Yeah. I mean, only 3 losses between them. That's a lot to say, right? All right, next up, let's go to Arizona. Let's do a little Pac-12, shall we? You game? You game for some Pac-12 trap? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. I picked against Arizona last time when they crushed Arizona State. So I got a bone to pick with Arizona.
All right, well, let's do it, shall we? The Wildcats, 11-3, 7-7 against the spread. Things went pear-shaped a bit for December for the Wildcats, going 2-3 in December, but conference play started with a 75-47 destruction of Arizona State. They're 8-1 straight up, 7-2 against the spread at home. They got 1 win so far in conference. I do love conference play, by the way. Makes so much more sense to me. The total is under in 4 of the last 6, and the Ducks, 12-3, 11-4 against the spread. 2 teams also, another 2 teams with good records here. 7-3 with a conference win against Utah in their last outing. They're 8-0 straight up, 6-2 against the spread at home. 1-1 in conference play. The total's gone over in 7 of the last 9. Of course, none of these teams would beat UCLA in the Pac-12. We know that. Yeah, but Oregon, right. 3.5-point favorites, total 144.5.
Both of these teams have had some unbelievable wins this year, and they've played very tough schedules out of the conference. Both these teams have played Gonzaga, believe it or not, which is kind of surprising. Of course, Oregon played them in a tournament and lost by 1 in overtime, and Arizona played them just a few weeks back, December 14th, and lost by 4 at home. I think this Gonzaga team is really good, so both of those losses look very good right now. Mm-hmm. I just think, to me, that winning at Oregon is very difficult. We know how ugly that court is to watch. I'm sure it's just as difficult to play on. I mean, it just looks like a forest on the court. I hate it. It's like playing that blue Boise field for football. I don't like it. I think it's a huge home court edge for Oregon. I think Oregon gets this win. They did have a kind of a surprising loss to start the Pac-12 season. They lost at Colorado, but they bounced back at Utah last time out with a 5-point win. Now they come home, first conference game at home. I think they get a nice win here against a good Arizona team. I think this Arizona team clearly either the first or second best team in the Pac-12, but I think Oregon at home takes care of business. So we're gonna lay the 3 points I see right now. We're gonna take Oregon -3 in this one.
Best team in Pac-12, of course, after UCLA. Agree. Okay.
Next up, UCLA.
Big Ten, Purdue at Michigan. Let's do that next. Purdue Boilermakers 9-6, 7-8 against the spread. 6-4 in the last 10, coming off a loss to Illinois. They're 1-3 straight up and against the spread away from home. 2-2 in conference play. Mason Gillis and Brandon Newman are out for the season. They've gone under in 9 of the last 13. And for the Wolverines, they're 10-4, 8-6 against the spread. 3-4 in the last 7 games, most recently losing in conference play to Michigan State. That had to hurt by 18 points. Hurt even more, double the hurt there. They're 7-1 straight up, 5-3 against the spread at home, 1-2 in conference play. Isaiah Livers is out indefinitely with groin problems. Now, I thought it could have been a liver issue, but it wasn't. It's a groin problem. Total has gone over in 4 of the last 6 against Purdue. Michigan, 4-point home favorites, which is actually surprising, Craig. I want to ask, look, total's 127.5. That, to me, is not a lot of points for a Michigan team that has a 10-4 record against a 9-6 Purdue. Is it the poor run of form that the Wolverines have been on?
Well, they haven't shot as well lately, and Purdue's coming off a game where they scored 37 points in a game. They lost 63-37 at Illinois. That was a really bad loss. And that's one of the reasons I actually like Purdue here. I always like teams that come off such a poor performance because guess what? When you play poorly, the next game and all the practice in between, the coach gets the full attention. So Purdue, I think, will come out ready to play in this one. And the line is suspiciously low. We see it at 5 right now. I'm going to take Purdue +5. And what I think is going to be a low-scoring game, Purdue knows they can't let Michigan run up and down. When Michigan won that early season tournament against Gonzaga in the finals, they beat a very good Florida State team. I mean, when they did that early in the year, I'm sorry, it wasn't Florida State. They beat North Carolina, Gonzaga, and Iowa State, 3 really good teams. They were shooting the 3-ball really well. Since then, they haven't shot really well. They went to Louisville, only scored 43 points. At Illinois, they only scored 62. And they actually played Oregon, only scored 70. So, and Oregon doesn't play a lot of defense sometimes. So, to me, I think this is a lower scoring game. So, getting 5 points is a lot better than what it looks. And like I said, when you face a team that coming off such a poor performance and such a blowout loss, and that is what happened to Purdue, that embarrassment helps carry over for the next game. I like Purdue here getting the 5 points. I might even see a little upset here.
All right, we got to go. Craig Trapp, always a pleasure. I'll be right back with more after this. Welcome back to the show. Nick Geber with you here on Picks and Parlays. Broadcasting live on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network around the country, and of course to our men and women in uniform. Keeping safe, I'm happy to say, listening on the American Forces Network. We're also streamed throughout the day on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want to join the discussion, we'd love to hear from you. Just hashtag us, Parlay Radio, or search Picks and Parlays. put your comment in the comment box. We'll see it here, and we will put it up on screen, and I will comment on it, even if it's rude and insulting. That's not a challenge. All right, coming up next, right now, Joe Duffy. Tried to get Sean Duffy, but apparently he was unavailable today. He was at his accountant's office. Apparently he had a large financial windfall, but his poorer brother Joe has agreed to step in for him, and we're very happy to have the Duff Man with us. How you doing, Joe?
I am doing fine, jolly old Saint Nick. Actually, I'm not on my medicine today, so maybe I am Sean Duffy. And let me wish you and your fiance a very sincere National Static Electricity Day and National Apricot Day, although being British, I'm sure it's National Apricot Day.
Well, don't forget, today is Nishihon Ganji Day, which, as I mentioned, is a board game that you fall into and get to spend the rest of your life with Jack Black.
All right. Well, it sounds like Dungeons and Dragons, which my brother used to play, Sean.
All right.
And so that's close enough. I can't say I've been in the board games other than Stratomatic.
Okay. All right. Let's get to it, shall we? We've got a little bit of everything for you today. We've got 2 NBA games and the national championship football game, college football game. Why don't we start with the NBA, Joe? Let's start with the Cavs at Pistons. We actually have a line on this one, so it's a bit of a help when you're trying to handicap it. The Cavs, 10-27, 15-20-2 against the spread. They're 1-6 in the last 7. They lost the last 5 in a row, including a 113-115 loss to the very Pistons that they're playing in this game. They're 4-13 straight up, 7-9-1 against the spread away from home. Dante Exum is unlikely to play. Larry Nance, Kevin Porter's still out. The total has gone over in 4 of the last 5 for the Cavs and the Pistons. 14-24, 14-22, and 2 against the spread. I don't have to say that they beat the Cavs last time out, but they did. They're now 3-7. They're 8-10 straight up and against the spread at home. Markieff Morris joins Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson, and Luke Kennard on the injury list. They've gone over in 7 of the last 9. And the Pistons, big home favorites, 7 points, 220.5 total on this one. Duffman regresses to the means, and let's make a little bit of means with this, shall we?
I definitely shall. Yeah, what you sort of alluded to, it does seem in the past couple weeks, really the past week or so, those sports books don't like releasing those lines and overnight lines and early morning lines quite as much as they used to. So too many sharps pounding on it. When I first got into this business in the 1980s, late 80s, and then through the early 90s, and I worked the score phones. Most of the a good majority of the score phone handicappers, we all worked under the same roof. So, of course, we would discuss things. And some of the people that were in the business longer than I was, there was an old adage, when you got 2 terrible teams, just bet the underdog. And, of course, not surprisingly, especially as computer software gets more and more sophisticated, you find out that's not true at all. And, in fact, when you have a bad team and they're playing at home and they're in a very winnable situation, they seem to respond quite well. Teams with a winning percentage of below 400, yet laying 6.5 or more, are a very good play. 461, 381, and 14, and the winning percentage is even higher at home. As I said, 430, 351, and 13. Yeah, you did mention Blake Griffin. Of course, it looks like he's going to be out again for some time. I'm not really big into teams, key players being distracted because of trade talks. It's just something you got to get used to. You might say that Detroit, Andre Drummond could be distracted, but then again, the Cavs, look, Kevin Love, his name is one of the hotter names in the trade talk. So both teams, in theory, could be a little bit distracted. But look, I just don't think Cleveland is a very good team. Okay, I understand how contenders would want Kevin Love, and even a Tristan Thompson, who's a good veteran player, but with Sexton, Thompson, and Love as your best players. Not all that imposing. Like I said, two of those 3 veterans would be great role players for contenders and whatnot. But when they're your best players, I don't know. I think I'm going to go with that system. I like it. It makes sense. A bad team with a rare chance to have a statement. Well, maybe statement win isn't really the best terminology, but a chance to come up with a big win at home. I'll go with Detroit.
Yeah, Duffman, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, because a lot of what I look for here is sort of the emotional and the intangible aspects of these games. That makes so much sense when you have 2 bad teams. Go with the favorite, generally the home team, because they're going to have that little extra edge at home. They're not going to want to embarrass themselves quite as much. And they're in an eminently winnable situation against another bad team. So they likely will rise to the occasion. Great pick. Love it. Agree. Don't listen to those old school phone bank guys. They're all full of crap. You know it. Okay, next up, Portland, Minnesota. Portland Trailblazers, 16-22, 15-21-2 against the spread. Coming off a 101-99 win over the Raptors, which was a surprise win because the Blazers really haven't been that good. They're 8-13 straight up, 9-12 against the spread away. From home, just about everybody on the Blazers, however, injured. The list is too long for me to read because we only have another 16 hours of showtime. Couldn't possibly get through the list by then. Totals come under in 8 of the last 10 on the road. And the Timberwolves, 14-22, 15-19-2 against the spread. Coming off a loss to the Grizzlies. 5-11 straight up, 4-11-1 against the spread at home. Same thing I read last time. Karl Anthony Towns, Jake Layman, they're not going to play. They haven't been playing for a while. No date they're going to come back. Total's gone under in 8 of the last 11. No line here, but what do you anticipate, Duffman?
Well, in reality, it looks like there is some possibility Karl Anthony Towns could wind up finally be returning. I saw him listed on one of my reliable sources as a game time decision, so he could possibly be back, which means there could be some line moves throughout the day, not necessarily a result of sharp action, somebody loving one side, but speculating maybe with reasonable information as to whether or not he is going to play. And of course, you're talking about a guy that averages 26.5 points per game, 11.7 rebounds, 4.4 assists. Portland, long road trip. They did play 4 Eastern Conference teams on this road trip. They're going to finish it up against the Timberwolves. Maybe something interesting to note. Andrew Wiggins matches up well against Portland. He's got more points against them than any other team. Also, Jared Culver seems to be rising for the Wolves, a rookie. Last 5 games, averaging 15.8 points per game. So, this line, I guess they're going to wait and check all the morning reports on the injury for Towns especially. But, if Towns does come back, obviously, Minnesota, I think they might be, the play. But it's probably a game I'm going to stay away from, to say the least.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's talk about a game no one's staying away for. Let's turn our attention to college football, the national championship game. Number 3, Clemson against number 1, LSU. The Tigers perfect 14-0. They did squeak by Ohio State, and I think a lot of people underestimating them for that, but that's just my opinion. That was 29-23 in the Fiesta Bowl. Look, they're 25-0 straight up. They're 19-6 against the spread every time Trevor Lawrence starts. They're the top-ranked defense in college football. They've allowed the fewest points per game in the NCAA. And let's not forget, still one more college football game to go here, so we're all happy. The LSU Tigers, 14-0, 9-3-2 against the spread. They blew apart Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl. Of course, Joe Burrow, a man that proved he can score 7 touchdowns in one half, which is pretty damn impressive if you ask me. I was certainly duly impressed, and it is noted. They're averaging 48.9 points per game, the most in the NCAA. Look, this is the best defense against the best offense, but I have to ask you, LSU 5-point favorites, total 69.5. Are the media, the pundits, and the bookmakers underestimating Clemson and their desire to repeat?
I do think so. Look, they seem to be forgetting Clemson. They're the defending national champions, and they are undefeated. But, forget about the media, which I like to do. In reality, this is pretty shocking. I've said many times, we all know the public loves to bet favorites. That's not exactly a secret, but
that's what makes them favorites.
The notable exception, yes, they definitely love to bet favorites. But the notable exception is when you have quality underdogs. In the postseason, in every single sport, all of a sudden they do like underdogs. So the fact that 74% of the bets, with the game's been up this long, 74% of the bets are on LSU, 79% of the money is on them. That is very, very substantial, especially for a game, that's not expected to be a mismatch. Because like I said, this is a situation where often the public likes the underdog. Can't ignore it. We talked about it before. This is not a neutral game. LSU only traveling 73 miles, Clemson 534. But of course, with the 2 weeks off, you could argue that the travel's not so much a situation there, but it'll be a little bit more of a home field advantage for LSU. Fading teams that are on a 29 or more game winning streak are actually only 7-12 against the spread. Now, my database does include Division I AA. If you limit it just to Division I, it would be 5-9. They would be And the thing is, it would apply to fading North Dakota State as well in the Division I AA National Championship game, for those of you who like to bet it. Anyway, also teams on at least a 25-game winning streak or a go against a 41-21. So that would say to bet on LSU. We all know about how good these quarterbacks are, and I'm going to play the over in the first quarter because in no small part, I don't see why there's any reason for either one of these teams to feel each other out. Normally to stop these teams, you'd want to keep them off of the field, but the strength of both of these teams is their spectacular offense. I know you mentioned Clemson's defense. It did help that they were going against, a so-so ACC opponents this year, but both of these teams are loaded on offense. Two Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. I think they're going to come out like it's going to be like an Aaron Pryor fight. You're old enough to remember Aaron Pryor. I think they're just going to run to the center of the ring, come out swinging. No reason for either team to feel them out. No reason for the strategy to be let's control the clock. I think over the 16.5 in the first quarter is going to be a great bet. You're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams score on their first. Both teams get a touchdown on their first possession. They won't be conservative at all.
All right, Joe Duffy, thank you so much. We'll take it there. It's going to be a brawl for the national championship game. You heard it. And take the over in the first quarter. All right, when we come back, his Model T's parked outside. That's right. Chip Chicken Dinner Chirimbes right after the break. Welcome back to the show. Picks and Parlays. We're broadcasting live on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. The best sports picks you're going to get anywhere for free. On the radio, on the web, on the interweb. If you put an antenna in your head, if you hold up a wire hanger, you're still not going to get better free picks than you're going to get on this show. I'm your host, Nick Geber. Find me on Twitter at Nick Geber. Well, we've had a great show so far. We've had Craig Trapp with some college basketball. We've had Joe Duffy, a little NBA in the national championship game. And now, let's mix it up a bit, shall we? Let's bring in our good friend, Chip Chicken Dinner Chirimbes. Right now, I have to say, Chip, you are on an absolute heater right now, aren't you?
Well, in the NBA, my top plays have gone 12-3, and we have a big lead in our game tonight. So I'm looking forward to NBA each and every day, posting 3 plays a day. And in NCAA action, which we've also picked up the pace, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 plays on any single given day. And, we've been doing this a long time, Nick. I've won a number of contests out here, and just a matter of time. We started off in a little rocky road, but we've really righted the ship lately, and we're really pounding them. 12 winning days in the last 14.
12 winning days in the last 14, Chipper. That's really good, my friend. Keep it up. And by the way, right now, if you want Chip's picks, you can get them because we got a special. It's an annual pass. You can get all of this man's picks for 1 year. Now, we have a medical report. He's going to be around for at least the next year. Okay, so feel free, $9.99, all the Chips picks for the next year. And if you want to throw in a little insurance, just in case, maybe go with someone, a few years younger, you can add Craig Trapp as well, or any other capper for just $14.99. Sorry, Chip, I couldn't resist.
Well, Nick, they say experience is the best teacher, and I guess I'm living proof of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I see that you didn't come into the studio today. Andrew tells me with some good authority that the Model T wasn't starting, so and the horse wasn't watered. So
not true. It's a Jaguar now, anyway.
Oh, it is. Okay, you're riding a Jaguar. Really? What sort of saddle do you use for that? But never mind.
I have like one of those Fred Flintstone fishing poles where I'm just hanging the meat out in front.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
The carrot in front of the donkey, I guess, is what we're looking for.
All right, Chip. Okay, let's go because we got 3 games for you.
Yep.
Why don't we start in the Pac-12, shall we? Because I love this one. Because it's the Washington Huskies against the Stanford Cardinals. The Huskies are 11-4, 8-7 against the spread. They're 7-3, having just beat Lori Loughlin's very own USC 72-40. And the problem is when you stack your team like USC does with a bunch of kids that have never played the sport but pretended to so that their parents could bribe their way in, when you have to actually get on the court and pay, it's tough, isn't it? All right, 8-2 straight up, 5-5 against the spread at home. They're 1-1 in conference. Now, it's important to note the Huskies' loss in conference came at the hands of the mighty UCLA Bruins. What a surprise.
Lordy.
Okay, the total's gone under in their last 5 road games. Why don't we ever do UCLA games on here, Chip? I know, because they always win. All right, Stanford
We gotta do
Cardinals.
teams that are worthy, that can reach the top 25.
That's enough from you, Chirimbes. That's enough. All right, the Cardinals, 12-2, 10-4 against the spread. The Cardinals. Now I'm wondering, is that a bird or a religious designation?
This is a religious designation. There is no S. It's the Cardinal.
The Stanford Cardinal. Right. Well, there could be more than one cardinal and maybe a bishop.
This is a Jesuit school, Nick. I don't want to knock you over with anything here.
Listen,
but you know what bothers me about
it's not a
this game
school
is
of
that-
ornithologists?
No.
Okay,
This is a
all right,
school that's
never mind.
12-2 right now.
Yeah.
Right? And this season is only a 2.5-point favorite at home, which I see kind of suspect. But there may be another way to go with this. The home team in this series has won 6 out of the last 7, and the favorite has won 5 of the last 7. But in the last 6 games, Stanford has played at home. All 6 have gone under the total. And as a matter of fact, in their last 28 games, next, they've gone 21-6-1 under the total. And you look to see what Washington's doing. You look on the other side, and they're 36-16 to the under when they're playing teams with better winning records, and 26-9 on the road in the same situation. So they're playing against a team with a better record, 12-2. Stanford has. They're 11-4, and they're 28-10 to the under in their last 38 games overall. These trends on the total are just overwhelming, and they're hard to overcome, and I won't buck them. I'd say the safest play, the best play between Stanford and Washington is these just play under the total, particularly against each other, and in this situation against 2 really good teams and rivals.
Yeah, well, it should be a really good game. I mean, 11-4 record and a 12-2 record, both in conference play, a lot on the line. Of course, they're all looking to knock UCLA off their pedestal.
Well, I think they've been knocked off quite a while now, and they're just scraping and scrambling to get up the side of this pedestal, and it's like a huge Greek column that's been greased. They're just not going to get there, Nick.
Chirimbes, do you want me to keep promoting you on this show or not?
I enjoy it. I really do. I'm having a lot of fun today.
All right. Okay. Next up, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. By the way, if you're a gopher, the last thing you want to do is to be cast in gold, because it means you've been taxidermied somewhere and covered in, I don't know, gold leaf. But never mind. They're 8-6, 9-4-1 against the spread. 7-3 of the last 10 coming off a 77-68 conference win over Northwestern. They're 0-4 straight up, 2-1-1 against the spread on the road. 2-2 in conference. Sam Freeman's out for this game. The total's gone over in 4 of the last 5 for the Golden Gophers, and it is plural, okay? It is plural.
Yes, it is.
And the Michigan State Spartans, plural, 12-3, 7-8 against the spread. 9-1 in the last 10, though, beating Michigan 87-69, the big rivalry, of course, but that was a bit of a whooping. They opened a can of whoop bottom, to be nice about it. And they're 12-3 straight up, 6-2 against the spread at home. A perfect 4-0 in conference in the Big Ten. Total has gone over in 4 of the last 5, and they are pretty much whopping home favorites here at 12-point home favorites, Chipper, with a total of 146. Is there any angle here that we're not seeing?
Yeah, well, maybe this Michigan State is probably the best team in the Big Ten, and they're proving it right now. A lot of these teams, they take it, especially with great coaching like they have. It takes them a few games, and this is why they go to Hawaii and why they go all over the place to iron out the kinks before conference play. They beat Minnesota and covered the last 3 times they played them in 5 out of the last 6 meetings. The total on this one is at 143, what I thought was kind of high because Michigan State's defense only allows 64 points per game, Nick, and Minnesota is not that far behind, only allowing 66 points. Minnesota's a very interesting team. They were 4-5 at one time. Nick, they've won 4 of their last 5. Excuse me, they were 5 and they've won 4 of their last 5, and the only time they lost is they went overtime against Purdue. They ended up losing that game by 10 points as an 8-point dog. A lot of people feel like that was a really bad beat. They are 6-1 against the points after a loss. This Minnesota team just seems to gurney up and play defense. But this Michigan State team averages almost 82 points a game, which Minnesota doesn't come close to. They're at 74. And it just looks like to me like this is supposed to stay under the total with these two teams, because Michigan State's gone under 19 of the last 26 against teams with winning record. Minnesota is 8-6 and 9-4-1 against the points. And Minnesota as well, when playing the better teams, is 22-7 against the point, and under 22-7 and 19-7 under on the road. These teams, Nick, it just seems that when these better teams with winning records get to play each other and it comes into conference play, they really play to the under more often than go playing over. Here we have a good 75% or 76% over a tested period of time.
So my question for you, Chipper, on that is,
yes.
Why is that? I mean, is it because, first of all, you got two good teams playing and they're not going to give up a boatload of baskets because they can actually play some defense? Or is it that it's a little cagier affair and they're a little bit more wary of their opponents, so they're not going to play quite as open basketball?
Well, the competition is better without question. And they're not getting the games against Chaminade and Virginia Commonwealth, or who isn't all that bad. But, the Division II schools where they build their stats. And a team will go out and they'll score 110 points. But these teams, when they come to conference play and they're playing against better teams, I think the coaching is much more conservative. I think they're looking to grab the rebound, look. It's like ball side middle instead of trying to throw the ball all the way down court. And I do think, Nick, like you said, there probably is a little more conservative play with the better teams when they get in against each other, particularly when we get to tournament in a conference tournament.
Right, sure.
Then these totals drop dramatically.
Well, right, of course, because the last thing you want to do is to drop games in conference, to teams that you hope to be on top of, right? So, look, let's move along. We're running out of time. Let's do some NBA, shall we? On this one, you're taking the under, by the way, the under, just to be clear.
Yes, I am, without question.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, that's without question.
All right, so let's do the next one. We're going to talk a little NBA action. The Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Chipper. The Rockets 24-11. They're 18-7 against the spread. They are on a 2-game winning streak, beating, their last game, I don't actually see who they're beating here, but they beat somebody. Oh, yeah, the 76ers, 118-108. How about that? And, of course, Oklahoma City Thunder are 12-16, 25-12 against the spread. And the Thunder are won their last game against the Nets, 111-103. Although, quite frankly, they had that big 5-game winning streak. Then they lost to the Sixers. They got them back, track back with the Nets. How do you see this one? I don't see a line on this yet. Maybe there isn't one.
Yeah, there hasn't been a line, but it doesn't mean there isn't a storyline with the game, Nick. I mean, you mentioned here's Oklahoma City, 25-12 on the year, and 12-6 at home. Those are outrageous point spread numbers because the number is looking to make these two teams play even, or so to speak. It's supposed to even the count, and yet they are dominating, obviously underrated by probably the public as well as the bookmakers. Oklahoma City's covered the last 3 meetings against Houston and covered 5 of the last 6. They're averaging 108 points a game. Houston, the NBA leader in points scored, averaging almost 120, 119.4. Yeah. And James Harden, of course, triple-double whenever he wants, and they put up points whenever they can. It seems like every time we've talked about Houston on the show, Nick, even though there isn't a line on this game, we've talked about being a fool not to play the game over. I mean, we had an Atlanta-Houston matchup, I think, last week, and it went over by like 30 points. And the Houston Rockets don't play defense unless they really have to. And I don't know if they really want to. There's some big firepower in Oklahoma City with Paul George is in Chris Paul is what I meant to say. But 7 of the last 10 meetings between these two have gone under the total. And Oklahoma City's just been playing really, really well straight up overall. We don't have a point spread on this, but they're 9-1 against the points in their last 10.
And that goes to what we were saying actually at the last game. It was college basketball. We were saying the same thing with 2 good teams playing each other. It's not going to be quite as open as one might think. Chip Chirimbes, always a pleasure, my friend. By the way, you can sign up and get Chip's picks now. Now, the good news is Chip's moved into the modern era. He no longer sends you his picks by a carrier pigeon. You will get them at picksandparlays.net. Sign up right now. This man right here, he is our resident expert, Chip Chirimbes. Chip, always a pleasure. By the way, question for you before I let you
Sure.
go.
Uh-oh.
Before I let you go, why don't you tell our listeners and viewers what your specialties are? Okay, because I mean, some people, hockey.
Do you mean
Chipper,
sexually, or do you mean in the sports genre?
well, I know you have a degree in human sexuality, and
I
quite
do.
frankly, I shudder to even think of what happened back in the Neanderthal era.
Well,
But
the field work was great, Nick. I can tell you that much about it.
but in terms of sports, you got 20 seconds. What do you excel at, Chip?
I probably excel at singling out the single strongest play of the day, like what's been happening in the NBA. I'm known for as the big game player because I recognize that one game that has an anomaly to it or is a little bit different from everything else. And that's what I've been doing. We've hit now 6 of the last 7 in college as well. And tonight we're romping it in the NBA, so most likely we're going to be 13-3 in the last 16 days. So it's been something I've been able to do in every sport.
Great. Chip Chirimbes, you got him. Go get him now. Picks and parlays. I'll be right back after this to wrap it up. Hey, welcome back to Picks and Parlays. Look, I hope you're having fun with us on this show because we have a lot of fun doing this show. I mean, look, you can watch some boring, dry recitation of point spreads and numbers and against the spread this and against the spread that. But we like to bring on the best handicappers and have a lot of fun with them and keep you engaged. And you're going to get the best free picks anywhere right here at picksandparlays.net. By the way, if you've missed any of the picks we've had today, this show will repeat immediately afterwards on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and the podcast available at the Believe Podcast Network. But if you missed any during the show and you're jonesing for them right now, I'll recap all of our top picks for you right now. We started off with Craig Trapp. And Craig had a little college basketball. Memphis at Wichita State. He said take Memphis +4. Purdue at Michigan, take Purdue +5. Arizona at Oregon, take Oregon -3. Then we had Joe, the Duffman Duffy, some NBA picks and a college football championship pick. Cavs at Pistons, take the Pistons -7. And then his college football championship pick, LSU Clemson. He said take the over in the first quarter, over 16.5. Wow, that's going to be a great game if that happens, and I'm sure it will because Joe said it so. Okay, Chip Chirimbes' college basketball picks. Minnesota at Michigan, take the under for 143.5. And Washington at Stanford, take Washington +2.5. Those are your picks. And I hope you wrote them down. We'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place, same channel. In the meantime, go to picksandparlays.net. Until tomorrow, see you.